That day, the air was filled with the sweet scent of white lilies. Soft music and the warm, happy murmur of congratulations echoed all around. My daughter, Emily, looked radiant in her traditional white wedding gown, her face glowing with a pure, simple happiness. As she walked down the aisle and took her future husband's hand in hers, my heart swelled with a pride I could never put into words. But beneath that pride, there was also a sadness, a quiet ache that I couldn't quite name. I can still see her clear eyes as she looked back at me from the altar. She smiled and whispered, "I love you, Dad." I could only manage a nod, swallowing hard to keep the tears from spilling down my cheeks. I wanted her to begin her new life with the memory of my biggest, bravest smile. After the ceremony was over and the last of the guests had driven away, the lights in the reception hall were dimmed one by one. I drove home alone, back to the house that had suddenly become far too quiet. The moment the front door clicked shut behind me, it felt as though my whole world had closed in with it. The silence that filled the space was heavy, a suffocating presence, nothing like the peaceful quiet I had once known. It used to be that every morning, I would wake up to the sound of Emily's voice calling, "Dad," from the kitchen, followed by the soft patting of her feet as she bustled around, getting breakfast started. Now, all that was left was the chirping of the sparrows outside my window and the gentle rustle of the wind through the curtains. Every corner of the house, every familiar object, seemed to hold a memory of her. The worn armchair by the window where she used to curl up with a book, the small kitchen table where we shared so many simple meals, the little garden on the back patio where she'd help me water the flowers. Everything felt hollow now, drained of its color and life. I found myself thinking back to when she was just a little girl. I remembered her shiny, dark hair falling to her shoulders and her big, sparkling eyes that took in the whole world. After my wife passed away, Emily became my everything. She was my reason for getting up in the morning. We weathered so many storms together, just the two of us, and I watched her grow into a strong, smart, and independent woman. I worked so hard to raise her, to give her everything I could. And now that she had her own family, her own life to build, it felt as if a piece of me had been carefully, permanently torn away. "I'll still come and visit you all the time, Dad, I promise," she had said. That was her promise to me, right before she stepped into the car that would take her and her new husband away. In that moment, her words felt like a warm ray of sunshine, a comfort against the coming chill. I believed her. I held on to the hope that even with her own home to look after, she wouldn't forget about her old father. But life doesn't always go the way you hope. That promise, it seemed to just evaporate into the air, as quickly and quietly as morning mist in the summer sun. A month went by, then 3. Before I knew it, half a year had passed, and I was still here, waiting. Every time the phone rang, my heart would leap, and I'd hurry to answer it, hoping to hear her voice on the other end. But it was usually just a friend calling to check in, or worse, a telemarketer with something to sell. Once in a while, a short text message would appear from her. "Hey Dad, how are you? Hope you're eating well." The words were kind, but they were brief and felt so distant. They weren't nearly enough to fill the vast, empty space in my heart. "She's busy," I would tell myself over and over. "She has her own life now, a husband to care for." I understood that. I truly did. I never wanted to be a burden, and the last thing I would ever want is to get in the way of her happiness. But deep down, in a place I didn't talk about, a quiet loneliness had taken root and refused to let go. My life settled into a quiet, predictable rhythm. I'd wake up early each morning, make a cup of hot tea, and then go out to water the plants on the patio. The roses and azaleas were still blooming, but without Emily's laughter to brighten the garden, even their colors seemed a little duller. Afterward, I'd take a walk around the neighborhood, breathing in the fresh air and looking at the tall green trees that lined the streets. I get by on my Social Security check, which comes to about $800 a month. It's not a lot, but it's enough to cover my bills and groceries. I'm careful with my money. I don't spend it on things I don't need. I've always been a saver. That's because I have a separate savings account, a little nest egg that I've never told anyone about. Not even Emily. I've been putting a little bit of money into it for years, whenever I could. I always thought of it as a fund for a rainy day, or maybe for a special gift for her on some future occasion. It's my own little secret, a small pocket of hope that I hold on to. It feels like an invisible thread, connecting me to the future and to the belief that good things are still yet to come. I learned to live on my own. I learned to take care of myself. I cook my own meals, and I clean my own house. Sometimes it's true, a wave of loneliness will wash over me, but I do my best not to let that negative feeling pull me under. I pass the time by reading the morning paper, watching a little television, or sometimes just sitting quietly, staring out the window. I'll watch the big, puffy clouds drift slowly across the sky, and I'll find myself thinking, is she happy? I wonder if she ever thinks about her old father. Questions like those will circle around in my mind, but I can never seem to find an answer for them. And so the days went, one after another, slow and steady. I got used to the quiet. I got used to being by myself. I've kept her old room just the way she left it. The small wooden desk is still there. And so is the bookshelf with all her old paperbacks, and even the worn-out teddy bear she's had since she was 5. It's all still there. I keep hoping that one day she'll come back, that she'll walk through that door and fill this house with her laughter and warmth again. I know it's a fragile hope, a thin thread to hang on to, but I can't stop myself from dreaming. I'm an old man now, and I know my time is limited. I don't ask for much. I just want to see that my daughter, my Emily, is happy. I just want to know that she's living a good, full life. That's all I've ever wanted. And no matter what happens, I keep believing that the love I have for her will never change. She will always be the light of my life, my greatest source of pride. My life continued to flow along its quiet, predictable course, but one day, that peace was suddenly broken. After so long, after all my waiting, my daughter came home. She just showed up at the front door. At first, I was just stunned, but then a wave of joy, a feeling so big I couldn't put it into words, filled my chest. She came bearing little gifts, a box of my favorite shortbread cookies from the bakery downtown and, most importantly, her gentle words. "I've been missing you a lot lately, Dad," she said, "so I came to visit." Her voice was as clear as I remembered, and her eyes sparkled just like they did when she was a little girl. It was like a cool, gentle rain falling on a patch of dry, thirsty ground in my heart. I allowed myself to believe that she had finally remembered her old father. Her visits started happening more often after that. I was so happy I could hardly contain it. I wondered if maybe she'd sensed how lonely I was, or perhaps her new life was just a little less busy now. Every time she came over, I'd cook all her favorite dishes, and I'd tell her all the little news about the garden and the neighborhood. I felt like my life had meaning again. But that joy, it didn't last. Slowly, I started to notice that something wasn't right. Every time she came over, without fail, she would go up to my bedroom and close the door behind her. At first, I just figured she wanted some space, a moment to herself to rest. But a seed of curiosity, and then a faint, unsettling feeling, began to grow inside me. Why my room? Why did she always close the door? Why wouldn't she stay in the living room where we could talk? One afternoon, while she was over, I decided to pretend I had fallen asleep on the living room sofa. I closed my eyes, but my ears were wide open, listening for every sound. I heard her soft footsteps on the stairs, and then the quiet click of my bedroom door closing. A knot of anxiety tightened in my chest. I made my breathing slow and even, and I waited. A few minutes passed. Then, I heard a faint sound from my room, the sound of a drawer being opened, and then closed. My heart started to pound in my chest. I couldn't stand it anymore. I slowly opened my eyes, carefully pushed myself up from the sofa, and started up the stairs. When I got to my bedroom door, I could hear a soft shuffling sound from inside. I leaned in and peered through the tiny crack between the door and the frame. What I saw sent a shock through my entire body. There was my daughter, the person I loved and trusted more than anyone in the world standing in front of my writing desk. Her hands were inside my wallet. And then I watched as she picked up the little notebook where I jotted down my daily expenses, flipping through the pages. It felt like a heavy stone had been dropped right in the center of my chest. "What are you looking for?" I said. I tried my best to keep my voice calm and even, but my heart was churning like a stormy sea. She jumped, startled, and quickly shut the drawer. She turned to face me, a flicker of panic in her eyes before it was replaced by a clumsy, forced smile. "Oh, nothing, Dad. I was just looking for your eye drops. I saw you rubbing your eyes earlier, and I thought you might need them," she said. But in her hand, she was still holding my wallet. I looked straight into her eyes, searching for even a glimmer of truth, but she couldn't hold my gaze. And in that moment, I knew. She was lying. From that instant on, an invisible wall started to go up between us. I still loved her, of course, but my trust in her had been shattered. I began taking precautions. I bought a small lock for the drawer in my dresser where I kept my important papers. I found a better hiding place for my wallet. And the statements for that secret savings account I'd been keeping for years. I moved those to a place where I was certain no one would ever find them. I never wanted to doubt my own daughter, to suspect her of something so awful. But her actions, they forced me to be on guard. They forced me to protect myself from my own child. Every time my daughter came home, I felt this tension in the air, something I couldn't see but could definitely feel. I tried to act normal. I'd make conversation, try to laugh, but my heart was always on guard. I started watching her closely, the way she moved, the way her eyes would dart around the room. Every now and then, I'd catch her sneaking a look toward my desk drawers, or glancing at the old leather bag I always keep by my chair. Those little things, those tiny signs, only made my suspicions grow stronger. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over. Why was she doing this? Was she in some kind of trouble? Did she need money? I wanted to ask her. I wanted to know the truth. But I was afraid. I was terrified that the answer would hurt me even more, that the truth would shatter the image I had held in my heart for all these years, the image of my sweet, kind daughter. So, I chose to stay silent. I decided to deal with my doubts all on my own. But it didn't stop. Her visits became more frequent, and so did her searching. I felt helpless. I had no idea what to do. The only thing I could think of was to protect myself, to protect what little I had left. I never imagined that the person I had loved my entire life could do something like this. The pain wasn't a physical ache. It was a pain deep in my soul, a wound that cut right into a father's heart. I just kept hoping. I hoped that one day my daughter would change, that she would go back to being the girl I once knew. But then, something happened, something sudden and unexpected. A painful fall brought with it a reality far more agonizing than any broken bone. That night, a storm was raging outside. A heavy rain beat against the window panes, making a sad, drumming sound. I woke up in the middle of the night, my throat dry and needing to use the bathroom. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. In the dark, my old legs felt a little shaky. I didn't bother to turn on a light. I knew this house like the back of my hand. But maybe it was my age, or maybe I was just careless, because I didn't see the small puddle of water on the bathroom floor. In an instant, my feet went out from under me. There was a loud thud as I hit the cold tile. A sharp, searing pain shot from my hip all the way down my leg. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. The pain was too intense, and my body felt paralyzed. I tried to call out for help, but all that came out was a faint groan. The darkness closed in around me, and I felt my consciousness slipping away. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a stark white bed. The air smelled of antiseptic, that distinct hospital smell. The fluorescent lights overhead were so bright they made me squint. A young nurse was standing by my bedside. She smiled gently and said, "Mr. Fleur, you're awake. You had a bad fall and passed out. Your neighbor heard the noise and called for an ambulance, and they brought you here." Her calm voice felt like a splash of cold water. I looked down at my leg and saw it was wrapped in a thick, white cast. The pain was still there, a dull throb, but it wasn't as sharp as before. A doctor came into the room a few moments later to check on me. "Mr. Miller," he said, "you've broken your hip. You'll need to stay with us for at least 10 days. We'll have to do a small surgery to set the bone, and after that, it's going to take some time for you to recover." When I heard him say that, a wave of anxiety washed over me. 10 days in the hospital? Who was going to look after me? How was I going to manage everything? And most of all, how in the world was I going to pay for all of this? Then I remembered my savings, the money I had been putting away for so long. It was the nest egg I'd carefully built up for an emergency, for a time of sickness or injury. This, I thought, was that time. This was what it was for. I called out weakly to the nurse who was checking my chart. "Excuse me, miss," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I have a savings account. Could you please help me contact my bank? I need to arrange to have them pay the hospital bills." The nurse nodded and gave me a kind, reassuring smile. "Of course, Mr. Miller. Don't you worry about a thing. You just get some rest. We'll have someone from our patient services department get in touch with them for you." A few hours passed. The nurse returned to my room, but this time, the reassuring smile was gone. Her brow was furrowed with a look of concern. "Mr. Miller," she began, her voice gentle, "we spoke with your bank, but they told us that the entire balance of the account was withdrawn 3 weeks ago." Her words hit me like a bolt of lightning. The entire balance? Withdrawn? 3 weeks ago? It didn't make any sense. It couldn't be true. For the past 3 weeks, my debit card and my account information had been tucked away, safe in the locked drawer of my dresser where I'd hidden them. How could this have happened? A cold chill ran down my spine. I tried to calm myself, to think rationally, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. And then, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. I saw my daughter, Emily, on one of her visits. I saw her slipping quietly into my bedroom, closing the door behind her. I saw her rummaging through my things. Most of all, I remembered the way her eyes wouldn't meet mine when I confronted her, the way they darted around the room, searching for an escape. All the scattered pieces of the puzzle, all the little doubts and suspicions I had tried so hard to push away, suddenly slammed into place, forming a single, horrifying picture. There was only one person in the world who could have secretly taken my card. Only one person who would have known where to look. It was my daughter. It was Emily. The reality of it struck my soul with a force that was physical. It was a pain far deeper and more agonizing than my broken hip. I just lay there, stunned, unable to process it. The daughter I had loved with all my heart, the child for whom I had sacrificed everything, had done this to me. Why? Why would she do such a thing? Tears began to well up in my eyes and stream down my cheeks, hot against my skin. They were not tears from the physical pain in my leg, but from the searing agony of betrayal, the crushing weight of disappointment. I felt like such a fool. I had trusted her completely, had refused to believe she was capable of something like this. I had seen the warning signs, the red flags, but I had willfully ignored them. I had lied to myself, choosing to believe that she was still the same sweet, gentle daughter I had raised, the little girl who was the center of my world. Lying there alone in that cold, sterile hospital room, I felt my heart breaking into a million pieces. Outside the window, the storm had passed, but a steady rain continued to fall, its quiet, rhythmic drumming, a sad accompaniment to my soft, choked sobs. I had no idea what to do now. How could I ever face her again? Suddenly, everything felt meaningless. That small nest egg, the money I had so carefully saved for my future, my one little pocket of security and hope, was gone. And along with it, the very last shred of trust I had for my own child was gone too. That fall didn't just break my hip, it shattered my heart. It ripped away the comforting veil I had been hiding behind and forced me to look at a cruel, ugly truth I had been trying so hard to avoid. I could only stare up at the blank, white ceiling, a vast emptiness that mirrored the one in my soul, and ask myself what I had left in this life, and how I could possibly survive a pain like this. After learning the terrible truth, I just lay there in my hospital bed, day after day, silently staring at the featureless ceiling. 1,000 questions swirled in my head, a relentless storm of confusion and pain. Why had Emily done this? Was she in some kind of trouble? Or had she simply changed, transformed into someone I no longer recognized? Was she no longer the innocent child I had loved unconditionally? Even then, a tiny, foolish part of me wanted to believe that it was all just a terrible mistake, that there was a reason I couldn't understand. Deep inside my wounded heart, a faint flicker of hope stubbornly remained. The hope that this was all just a horrible misunderstanding. I decided I had to call her. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone on the bedside table. Each of my fingers felt heavy, as if they were made of lead. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying my best to compose myself. I couldn't let my voice tremble. I couldn't let her hear how weak, how broken I felt. I punched in her number and listened to the phone ring. The sound seemed to go on forever, each piercing tone cutting a little deeper into my heart. Finally, just as I was about to hang up, she answered. "Hello?" Her voice was quick, a little breathless, like I had caught her in the middle of something. "Emily, it's Dad." I fought to keep my voice as calm and steady as I could. "I'm in the hospital. I broke my hip. I was wondering if you could come help out for a little while." Even as the words left my mouth, I was still holding on to that tiny sliver of hope. I was praying I would hear concern in her voice, praying she would say she was on her way. The other end of the line went silent. It was a heavy, suffocating silence that seemed to stretch on for an eternity, as if time itself had stopped. I waited. Every second felt like a century. At last, I heard her let out a quiet sigh, and then she spoke, her voice small and tight. The warmth that had always been there was gone, replaced by a cold, flat tone. I had never heard from her before. "I'm really busy, Dad. Can't you just figure something out yourself? Things are tough for everyone right now." Those few, short, cold words pierced right through me. They shattered whatever pathetic wall I had tried to build around my heart. It wasn't just the refusal that hurt so much. It was her tone that froze me to the core. The voice on the other end of the line was the voice of a complete stranger. It held no sympathy, no concern, not even a flicker of affection for her father. Lying alone in a hospital bed with a broken bone, I felt a great, solid block of ice form inside my chest. Every hope I had placed in my daughter, every ounce of trust I had given her, vanished just like soap bubbles popping in the air. For so long, I had been lying to myself, painting a picture in my mind of the perfect, caring daughter. But now, that beautiful dream had been smashed into 1,000 pieces, and the sharp, jagged edges were tearing at my soul. I didn't say anything. I just gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod to the daughter I couldn't see. "Oh, right, I see." My own voice had turned to ice. I ended the call, and the phone slipped from my numb fingers, landing softly on the white hospital blanket. I just lay there in the bed, staring up at the ceiling, but I wasn't seeing anything at all. Inside my head, her words echoed over and over. "Can't you just figure something out yourself, Dad? Things are tough for everyone right now." My mind drifted back to when she was just a little girl. I remembered the nights I'd sat up with her when she had a high fever, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead. I remembered holding her in my arms and comforting her when she came home from school crying because some other kids had been mean to her. I had dedicated my entire life to her, given everything I had to make sure she had the best life possible. But now, in the moment when I needed her help the most, she had turned her back on me with a chilling indifference that felt almost cruel. The tears came again, but this time they weren't tears of physical pain. They were tears of bitter disappointment and utter despair. I felt completely and utterly alone, abandoned in the truest sense of the word. Maybe it had been my mistake. Maybe I had expected far too much from her. Perhaps I should have opened my eyes and seen who she had really become, a long, long time ago. But there was something my daughter didn't know, something I had never told a soul. She didn't know that I had another bank account, a second savings account, hidden away and guarded more carefully than anything else I owned, set aside for the direst of emergencies. And she didn't know that I also held the deed to a rental property, a small house I'd bought when I was a young man. These were my secrets, assets I had kept completely to myself. I had protected them like a lifeline. And now, these last remaining pieces of my life would be what held me up, what gave me the strength to face this cruel new reality. I lay there and thought for a very long time. I didn't want to blame her. I didn't want to hate her. But I knew I could never forgive what she had done. From this day forward, my life was going to be different. I would have to learn how to live without a daughter. I would have to learn how to overcome my hardships all by myself. A decision began to form in my mind. A decision that felt cold and hard but necessary. It was a decision I had to make to protect myself and what little I had left. The days in the hospital passed by in a slow, painful crawl. Every morning, I woke up with a hollow feeling in my chest. It wasn't just the emptiness of sadness anymore, it was the emptiness of a heart that had been worn down to nothing. I didn't complain. I never mentioned what had happened or brought up the subject of money. I made myself smile at the nurses. I chatted with the other patients in the ward. I tried my best to act as if nothing was wrong, but deep inside, my mind was made up. A cold, firm resolve, born from all that pain and disappointment, had taken root. After I was discharged, I returned to the familiar quiet of my own home. But now, the silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace, the kind of quiet I needed to put my plan into action. I didn't rush. I gave myself a few days to just rest, to let my body heal and allow my legs to get steady beneath me. Each step was still a little shaky, but it was a step taken with unwavering determination. My first stop was the bank. I took out the bank book for that secret savings account I had guarded for so many years and withdrew the entire balance. The number on the screen wasn't a fortune, but it was more than enough to support me for a good while. Without a moment's hesitation, I told the teller to transfer the full amount into a brand new account at a completely different bank, one my daughter knew nothing about. I was cutting the financial cord, leaving no possible way for her to ever take advantage of me again. As I held the new account book in my hand, I felt a strange sense of lightness, as if an invisible, crushing weight had finally been lifted from my shoulders. Next, I went home and gathered all the paperwork for the old house I was renting out. It was a property I'd bought in my youth, and it had always provided a small, steady source of income. I took all the documents to a reputable law firm I trusted and arranged for them to manage the asset for me. I gave them clear instructions to place it under their management, ensuring that no one could ever touch it or make decisions about it without my explicit consent. The attorney looked at me with a question in his eyes, but I simply offered a calm smile. "I just want to get everything in order," I said, "to avoid any trouble down the road." I didn't tell him my heartbreaking story. That was a pain I would carry alone. Once my finances were secure, I sat down at my desk and took out a clean white sheet of paper and a pen. I began to write my will. With a clear and steady hand, I wrote out each clause, each wish, as if I were writing the first chapter of a new life. I would not be leaving a single thing to my daughter. It wasn't an act of hatred. It was because I believed she needed to learn to take responsibility for her own life. I wrote, "I bequeath my entire estate, including all my remaining savings and my rental property, to a charitable foundation that supports elderly people who have been abandoned by their children." I wanted my life to help others who found themselves in my position, people who had been discarded and taken advantage of by the ones they loved most. This felt like the best way to find meaning in what was left of my life. It was also my quiet act of defiance against my daughter's heartlessness. When I finished writing and signed my name at the bottom, a profound sense of peace washed over me. The heavy burden I had been carrying on my shoulders was gone. The anger and the sadness had faded away, replaced by a quiet sense of acceptance. I had done everything I could to protect myself and to find a new purpose. Then, I picked up the phone and called my daughter. My hand didn't tremble. My voice wasn't weak. I was ready to face her, ready for this one final conversation. Hello? I heard her voice on the other end, tinged with surprise. It's me, your father, I said, my voice perfectly calm. I have something I need to tell you. It's about my assets. Just like that, my daughter's voice changed. The surprise vanished in an instant, replaced by that sickly sweet, syrupy tone she always uses when she wants something. Dad, are you okay? I'm so sorry I couldn't come see you before. I've just been so busy. Please, don't be mad at me. I'll be over soon. Do you need me to bring you anything? Her words didn't stir a single thing inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just a vast, terrifying emptiness that felt as cold and empty as a winter sky. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that she only ever thought about my money. She only put on this kind, caring act when she thought there was something in it for her. I had known this for a while, of course, but hearing it so plainly, so mechanically, was still a shock. Despite the hollowness inside me, I managed a faint, humorless smile. Yes, please come. I'll be waiting for you, I said. I ended the call and placed my phone on the desk. I looked out the window, my eyes fixed on the clouds drifting slowly, lazily across the sky. I knew the meeting ahead would be charged with tension and emotion, a confrontation I had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. But I was ready. I had everything arranged. I would not allow her to deceive me again. I was going to show her that this old father wasn't some fool, not some easy mark she could take advantage of anymore. Later that afternoon, Emily arrived. She walked into the house with that familiar look on her face, sweet, thoughtful, and with an undercurrent of anxiety that couldn't quite be hidden by her practiced smile. Dad, how are you? I've been so worried about you. I'm so sorry I couldn't come sooner. Things have just been crazy, she said, her voice dripping with a fabricated warmth. Her eyes shone as if she truly cared, as if my well-being was the most important thing in the world to her. There was a time when words like that would have filled my heart and brought tears to my eyes. But now, all I could see was the lie, the perfectly calculated performance. I put on the gentle smile I had rehearsed in the mirror. I'm doing just fine, honey. Come in, have a seat, I said. I poured her a cup of tea, and just like old times, I listened to her talk, pretending that nothing was wrong. I asked her about her work, about her marriage, and she launched into an endless stream of stories about her struggles, about all the big expenses that were piling up. I listened in silence, just nodding from time to time. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to win my sympathy, to set the stage for what she really came for. When she finally paused to take a breath, I gently set my teacup down on the table. I looked her straight in the eye. There's something I want to give you, I said. She looked back at me, her eyes a mixture of curiosity and a flicker of hopeful expectation. Slowly, deliberately, I slid a small, plain envelope across the table toward her. It looked ordinary enough, but inside, it held a harsh and undeniable truth. Emily picked up the envelope and opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the documents inside. First, she saw the bank statement, completely empty, showing a balance of 0. Next, she saw the withdrawal slips, each one marked with a date and an amount. And finally, at the very bottom, was a copy of my last will and testament. The color slowly drained from her face. The smile that had been plastered on her lips tightened, then vanished completely. Her eyes grew wide as she stared at the papers, her expression one of utter disbelief. Dad, you can't be serious. Are you really going to do this? Her voice trembled, all traces of its earlier sweetness gone. I met her gaze without flinching. I had been preparing for this moment for a very long time. You treated your father like a stranger, I said, my voice cold, clear, and devoid of any emotion. So now, I'm going to treat you like one too. She began to cry. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. Not a single shred of the pity that had once been so easy for her to summon. I had been hurt too much, disappointed too deeply. Her tears were tears of regret, not of love. They were tears for what she had lost, not for the father she had betrayed. She reached for my hand, her voice pleading. Dad, I'm so sorry. I know I was wrong. Please, please don't do this. I gently pulled my hand away. What you've lost isn't the money, Emily. It's not about the approx. US 350,000. It's the unconditional love of your father. Every word was heavy with all the pain and disappointment I had carried for so long. She hadn't just lost a sum of money, she had lost my trust. My unconditional love, things that, once broken, could never be put back together again. She continued to weep, but I remained unmoved. I was too tired. I had suffered too much. I couldn't continue this charade any longer. I stood up and walked over to the window, watching the last rays of the setting sun disappear below the horizon. My life would never be the same as it was before. But I knew, with a quiet certainty, that I had chosen the right path. I had protected myself, and in doing so, I had found a new reason to live. Emily was still sitting at the table, sobbing aloud. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see her false face anymore. I just wanted it all to be over. I wanted her to leave. I needed my own quiet days, my own peace. In the end, this was probably the best thing for both of us. I am an old man. I know I don't have much time left, but I am going to live the days that remain with purpose. I will take care of myself and cherish the time I have to do the things I enjoy, and I will never forget this lesson. It is a lesson in betrayal, but it is also a lesson in strength. I will live the rest of my life fully, unbound by anyone, and I will never be disappointed again. After the door closed and she was gone, the house was quiet again. This time, though, the quiet wasn't the same. It wasn't the heavy, aching silence of despair that had filled the house before. Instead, it was a peaceful quiet, the kind that settles over the world after a great storm has passed, leaving behind a clear sky and clean air. I stood at the window and watched her figure grow smaller as she walked away down the street. I didn't shed a single tear. After everything I had been through, all the turmoil and heartache, my heart had hardened, but in doing so, it had become stronger than ever. The tears had all dried up, and along with them, the illusions and empty hopes I had woven for myself for so long had vanished. I turned away from the window and walked slowly back to the sofa, the one where I always sat to read my books and look out at the garden. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. A flood of memories of my daughter washed over me, from her first wobbly steps as a toddler to the beautiful young woman she became, looking so radiant in her white wedding gown. For so long, I had believed that happiness was simple, to raise my child well, to give her a comfortable life and a bright future. I poured every ounce of passion and energy I had, and every last penny of my savings, into making sure she could get an education, that she could have all the things I never did. I truly believed that if I just gave her endless love, she would grow up to be an honest, affectionate, and respectful person. But I forgot to teach her the most important lesson of all, that the bonds of family are not a resource to be consumed. I never taught her that love, compassion, and respect for a parent aren't commodities to be bought and sold. Not things you can just throw away when you decide they no longer have value. I should have taught her that family relationships, especially the one between a parent and a child, are a precious treasure, something to be nurtured and protected with all your heart and sincerity. I was so focused on providing for her material needs that I forgot to cultivate a spirit of gratitude, of sharing, of unconditional love. Perhaps I was too soft, too lenient, and she came to feel that everything was simply her due. She came to see her father's love as an inexhaustible treasure she could draw from whenever she pleased. The pain I feel now isn't the sting of losing money. Money can be earned again, and I can live without it. What truly hurts is the loss of trust. It's seeing the beautiful image I held of my daughter in my heart shatter into a million pieces. It's the realization that the person I loved more than myself was capable of treating me as a tool, as nothing more than a source of profit. That is a deep wound, one that I suspect will never fully heal. Now, I don't have much time left. I'm 70 years old, and I know the days remaining to me are numbered. But I am going to spend the rest of my life living it the right way. For the first time, in the truest sense, I will live a quiet and peaceful life for myself, not to be used by anyone, not drowning in the fantasy of a false love. I will no longer be troubled by anyone else's calculations or demands. I have changed everything. I changed my bank accounts and the paperwork for my property. I had a will drawn up, and I decided to leave my assets to a charitable foundation that helps support elderly people who have been abandoned by their children. I want to help others who are enduring the same pain of loneliness and betrayal. This is my way of finding meaning in the rest of my life, a way to turn my pain into something positive. My life is very simple now. Every morning I wake up early as I always have. I make myself a cup of hot tea and then go out to the patio to water my plants. The flowers are still blooming as beautifully as ever, but I see them with different eyes now. Eyes filled with gratitude and respect. I take walks around my neighborhood and chat with the friendly people who live next door. I read books, I listen to music, and sometimes I just sit quietly and watch the clouds drift slowly across the sky outside my window. I no longer wait for the phone to ring or look forward to a visit. I have learned to accept reality, and I have learned how to find joy in the smallest, most humble things. I don't want anyone to take care of me. I just want to be left in peace. I don't want to be a bother to anyone, and I don't want anyone to bother me. I just want to live out my remaining days peacefully, without being disturbed, without being used. I have found a tranquility in my own heart, a sense of peace that I haven't known for many, many years. I've learned that happiness isn't about having everything. It's about knowing what is enough, appreciating what you have, and letting go of what you cannot. And that's where my story ends for today. It might be a sad story, but I hope it can serve as a lesson for all of you. Thank you for listening to me until the end. I'll see you all again in the next video.